The King's Indian setup can be played against e4, d4, knight f3, literally anything. Whenever you're black and your opponent plays any move, you can use it. That's why it's a great option for beginner to intermediate players, and these are the variations you'll have to learn. Except that we're going to learn a very easy setup and how to play the middle game after that. In 10 minutes from now, you will have an easy backup plan for every game as black. Here's how to play it. Basically you have 3 missions in the opening. Your first mission is very easy. See your king? It's not safe in the center. To avoid that, build a nice cozy castle like this and your king is in safety. Good job! Mission 1 is completed. There's just one thing. If they ever go e4, even if it's the first move, immediately play d6, the perk defense. If you play your normal moves instead, they will go here. This is very, very unpleasant. So instead, as soon as they push e4 at any point, you immediately go d6, some white move, and now you can develop your knight safely. If they attack it now, you can snack the pawn, and if they recapture, you can catapult your wife into the battlefield. It's just not good for white. So, most games you'll have to play d6 in the beginning and then you can go on about your castle. Let's move on to mission number 2. Once you've built the castle, you want to prepare an attack on the center. And this is where the opening becomes more complex than a PhD in quantum physics. I'm just going to show you the basic ideas. For your knight, you have 2 options. This and this. Generally speaking, this is the more aggressive option. We will look at that option later. But for now, let's go with the easier option. They can't attack your knight at all and you're supporting these 2 squares, preparing a future attack on the center. Look at this dude. Before clogging the position with your knight, try to get the bishop out first. This is the best square. In lower elo there's a 100% probability that you will see this move at some point. You just trade the bishop. Sometimes you will encounter a crazy person who plays h3 even before you can develop your bishop. In that case, please don't play bishop g4. Instead you can push this pawn and position your bishop here. Easy, right? Bishop go here or here. Knight go here or here. Now mission 3, the most important part. You are going to attack the center and the enemy king. Explaining this is kind of difficult. So let's just look at the most legendary example game played by Hikaru Nakamura. White opens with d4 and Hikaru plays knight f6, c4, pawn push, and knight c3. Hikaru positions the bishop and after e4 he immediately goes d6 as we talked about earlier. Knight f3 and castle. Just like that, mission 1 is completed. Good job Hikaru. Now some other white move and normally you work on mission 2, preparing the attack. But Hikaru attacks the center right away. Now pay attention because this is a very common scenario that will really elevate your skill level. I intentionally split the opening into missions. Mission 1, building the castle, is non-negotiable. You always want to finish this. Mission 2 however, which is to prepare the attack, can be skipped if you don't need it. So Hikaru goes straight into the attack. Before doing this, think about what's going to happen if your opponent takes. Let's say hypothetically his opponent captured the pawn. Hikaru can take back. To make it easier they exchange queens and his opponent eats the pawn with his knight. Hikaru is down a pawn. Or is he? You can actually take the pawn like this and if white captures, Hikaru can take the knight with the bishop. This is a very common tactic in the opening, that's why I walked you through it. In this game white castled instead. And here's another very important move. Hikaru moves this knight. I told you earlier that this is the more aggressive and slightly more difficult choice, because the knight can easily be attacked. And that's exactly what happened in this game, but it's not much of a problem. Hikaru swings the knight over to e7, let me explain why this is a great move. A major part of your strategy will be your attack on the enemy king side. This pawn will attack like this. And your knight on e7 perfectly supports both your pawn push and your whole king side attack. White moves a knight, making room for the pawn. And Hikaru also moves his knight out of the way, which is another very common move in the King's Indian. White pushes the pawn and finally, Hikaru executes his attack. You are about to see the most straightforward attack on the king since 1793. White develops the bishop and Hikaru pushes the pawn again. The bishop retreats and here comes another pawn. Hikaru is about to run over his opponent. You definitely want to see that so you can do it the same way. You might be wondering though, what if there's no king on the king side? What if they castled queen side instead? Well, buckle up because different side castling is extremely dangerous for both players. Pretty much the only advice that I can give you is to generally keep your king side locked. No pawn storm this time. The rest is just a hardcore tactical thinking contest. Good luck. But most people castle king side, so let's go back to the relevant lesson. Hikaru's kingside attack. White puts the knight here, to prepare a pawn push. White's defense is about to collapse and the game will end in a fatal checkmate. Hikaru brings the knight over to g6 to support the kingside attack. White attacks queenside, but Hikaru moves his knight, building up the kingside attack. Now you'll understand the point of this move in a few seconds. Rook f7, again you will understand this in a few seconds. King h1. The idea is to create an escape square for the bishop because white sees a big attack coming. And Hikaru uses every free move to push pawns. And white captures on the queen side. Hikaru takes back, and now you can see the idea behind these rooks. The knight goes here, threatening to advance very deeply into the enemy's defense. But Hikaru predicted this attack. The rook and the queen prevent it. He pushes a6 and the knight has to retreat. Attack blocked successfully. But there's one more thing. The knight can go here, potentially going here. So Hikaru does something called neutralizing. You identify a possible move and neutralize it. So he identifies the threat and prevents the move by pushing this pawn. That's what you want to do on the queen side. Now rook c6, white is eager to attack the queen side. But g4, Hikaru keeps attacking the king side. Queen c2, supporting the queen side attack. Queen f8, both players have made a clear decision which side to attack. Later you will actually see that this was one of the most important moves in the game. Rook c1, now the bishop is triple attacked. Bishop d7 and the rook has to go here. Bishop h6, a hidden attack on the rook. The bishop retreats, obviously because this is becoming kind of a problem. Nakamura pushes this pawn, three dudes chilling right in front of the king. This isn't real life, you can't just ignore all your problems, you have to actually face them. So white attacks. And you're about to see the most epic King's Indian attack of all time. Hikaru pushes the pawn. Take a moment and look at this. The bishop now attacks the rook. Both these pawns are hanging. And here's something that I'll call a hidden checkmate. We'll get to that in a second. White takes the pawn. And as you might anticipate, of course Hikaru is going to sacrifice his knight. Except it's not actually sacrificed, because if white takes, it's check. Takes checkmate. Except it's not actually checkmate because instead, white could go here. Except that it actually is checkmate because after bishop goes here and bishop takes, he can sacrifice the pawn, king captures and check, and after blocking the check, this is checkmate. Basically, if white takes the knight, it's bye-bye. So instead, white saves the rook from the bishop attack. And now, behold, a rook sacrifice. If white was to take the rook, then black could recapture with the queen, giving check. Now the best engine moves are to block the check with the queen, then black takes this pawn with the bishop. White pushes a pawn, and now black can take the queen, giving check again. White has to take with the king, and as you can see, the rook is gone and black is in a way better position. So of course his grandmaster opponent did not do that. Instead of taking the rook, he takes the bishop on the queen side. The current engine score is -22. The whole king side is ripped apart, the king is in massive danger. Hikaru goes rook f1. You already know that taking the rook results in immediate checkmate. So instead, white goes king g2, but now bishop e3, threatening to put the rook here, which would be checkmate in 2. White moves the bishop away so that this rook is protecting the g1 square. That was cool. White avoided checkmate. Force checkmate in 13 moves. We'll look at this epic checkmate and then we'll summarize how you should play the King's Indian, because you probably won't spot a 13-move checkmate. In this position, Hikaru takes the bishop, leaving his rook unprotected. White of course captures the rook and Hikaru attacks with the knight. Check. This would be checkmate in 1, so white goes king h3. Hikaru puts the queen here, a potential discovered attack on the king. The white king can't move at all, so white pushes the pawn, opening this escape square for the king. Knight captures the pawn with check. King g4, knight f3, now this would be checkmate. To stop it, white moves the knight here, covering the h3 square. Now the queen goes here, still a dangerous move. And king f5, the king has arrived on the other half of the board. Rook f8, another check. The king has to go even further. Rook f6, this is the second rook sacrifice. The king captures. And here's something. A discovered check and actually double check. Now king g6. After leading the king all the way to the other side of the board, finally, Hikaru plays queen h5, checkmate. Okay, that was Hikaru. But how should you play the King's Indian defense? You have two options. Number 1, the superior way. Build the fancy castle and then do the math. Can you attack the center right now? If you can, do it right away. Then of course, attack your enemy's fancy castle. The more you play this and the more you watch high elo games, the more you will recognize typical moves like bringing out the bishop, sliding this knight to make room for the pawn push, positioning the rook and queen here, sliding this knight to the king side and pushing pawns like a maniac. The bad news is, if you think you can study all variations, you've pranked yourself. It might be the most complex opening of all, but it's also the easiest opening if you play the simple setup. Just build your fancy castle. Bishop, knight, and the middle game strategy is the same. Instead of studying a bunch of dumb stuff, play the simple version and get practice for the middle game. You need nothing more than practice. But one last thing, considering you now know how to play the easy King's Indian setup, you can totally use it as a backup plan. I highly suggest you don't try to master the King's Indian as your main opening.